Welcome to the Lotus Precon series, where I make decks that are under $50, around the same price as a Precon, that you guys can, go buy at your LGS for 50 bucks or lower, and they can perform at the tables. They're powerful. Now, in spirit of us doing a Lotus Precon video, and in spirit of the previous Precon winner of the giveaway not reaching back out to me, we're going to be giving away a Planeswalker Party Precon, all right? So, if you like Planeswalkers, you like parties. But no, it's a cool deck. It's a America Planeswalker deck. Deck list for this will be in the description as well if you want to check out the deck list. If you want to get signed up for this giveaway, just like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share the video, and you're in. This is just to say thank you, I guess. You guys have been super supportive. I've been doing some lifestyle changes. You guys have been really giving me a lot of tips and tricks for that. You guys have been pretty much pushing 10K on most of the videos I upload, which is wild. If this one hits almost 10K, if all of you guys subscribe, we're already at the 10K there. Like, subscribe, comment, share to get into that giveaway. And with that, we jump into the second Lotus Precon of the series. This Precon is based around Satoru the Infiltrator, and it is called I Don't Want to Play With You Anymore. And yes, it's based off the Toy Story meme. Stick with me. This deck is incredibly unique and incredibly fun to mess around with. It stands its own on a table, and it's really fun to look for cards for because it's, again, a very niche strategy. This deck is based around using Undying effects along with Persist effects to utilize Satoru's ETB, draw a card ability, and then using Switcheroo effects to exchange control of our Undying creatures that we've already used for bigger and more powerful stuff, along with cards that can remove counters from permanents we control. We utilize these Persist and Undying cards to their fullest extent in this deck. And if that sounds fun to you, let's get into it. Satoru is blue and a black for a 2/3 human ninja rogue with menace. Whenever Satoru the Infiltrator and or one other non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. So if we're playing stuff for free, if we blink stuff, pretty much any way that a non-token can enter without us casting it, or if it costs 0 mana, we draw a card. So my brain immediately went to Undying and Persist cards. If you don't know what Undying and Persist is, Undying, if a creature dies without a 1/1 counter, it comes back with a 1/1 counter. Persist is the same thing with a -1/-1 counter, which will, of course, trigger Satoru to draw us a card. So I think that's probably a good place for us to jump into. We'll start with our Persist creatures. To be honest, there's only 4 Persist creatures that are really worth playing, but they're pretty good, and there's plenty of Undying to make up for it. Lesser Masticore comes in at 35 cents. It's 2 colorless for a 2/2. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, pay 4. Lesser Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature, and it has Persist. When it dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it, which again will trigger Satoru. That's the idea. Putrid Goblin comes in at 39 cents. It's 1 and a black for a 2/2 with Persist. Puppeteer Click comes in at 49 cents. It's 3 and 2 black for a 3/2 with Flying. When it enters the battlefield, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard into play under your control. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next end step. It also has Persist. So not only are we getting card draw off this one, we're also stealing opponent's stuff with this one, which you'll find out shortly is another sub-theme. So Puppeteer Click. Speaking of love it, River Kelpie is an old school classic. 49 cents, 3 and 2 blue for a 3/3. Whenever River Kelpie or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. Whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. It's also got Persist. This with Satoru in play, you're gonna have a full hand because your stuff's going in grave, coming back. Yeah. Now to kind of daisy chain the Persist package into the Undying package, we've got Butcher Ghoul for 35 cents, 1 in a black, 1/1 Undying, very straightforward. Evernight Shade for 35 cents as well is 3 in a black for a 1/1 that we can pay 1 black to give it +1/+1 until end of turn. And it also has Undying. This is a cool one that I potentially think could be pretty good in this deck. You could just hit face with a giant creature, and it also just fits into the deck strategy. Sure. Stormbound Geist comes in at 35 cents as well. It's 1 and 2 blue for a 2/2 flying that can only block creatures with flying. It also has Undying. Those are kind of more of our basic Undying. Now we get into the more spicy Undying options that we have. Demon Lord of Ashmouth comes in at 49 cents. It's 2 and 2 black for a 5/4 with flying. When Demon Lord of Ashmouth enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you sacrifice another creature. It's also got Undying. This thing's great because it's a giant demon that can smack face that also has Undying that can also sack our other stuff with Undying and Persist. Yeah, this one's really good. As is Endling. I like the Ling cycle, like Aetherling, Endling. whatever the other ones are. Endling is 49 cents. It's 2 and 2 black for a 3/3 with 4 different activated abilities. We can pay 1 black to give it Menace until end of turn. We can pay 1 black to give it Death Touch. We can pay 1 black to give it Undying until end of turn, or we can pay 1 colorless to give it +1, -1, or -1, +1 until end of turn. We can turn this thing into a big butt blocker with Death Touch. We can turn this thing into a big attacker by pumping it up. Most importantly, we can give it Undying. Just a good option. Also, from the new Fallout, Hancock Ghoulish Mayor is actually really good in here. 49 cents. He's 2 and a black for a 2/1. Each other creature you control that is a zombie or mutant gets +X/+X, where X is the number of counters on Hancock. He's also got Undying. At the end of the day, this is just another Undying piece. We do have 4 zombies in the deck, so I guess there could be something there. But also Zombie Mayor, kind of thought, you know, too cool not to. Surprisingly, Doctor Who also had an Undying card that's pretty good. We got Nardal Resourceful Cyborg coming in at 49 cents. He's 1 and a blue for a 1/2 that we can tap to add a blue mana for each counter on him. Spend this mana only to cast non-creature spells. He's also got Undying. This guy's great. He's just another thing with Undying that can just like help us cast some of our non-creature stuff like card draw, removal, stuff like that. I think he's great. So from here, there are 3 creatures that don't really fit into the Persist or Undying section, but I still wanted to talk about them. We've got Tenacious Dead coming in at 35 cents. It's 1 and a black for a 1/1. When it dies, you may pay 1 and a black and return it into the battlefield tapped. There's Reassembling Skeleton for 39 cents. It's 1 and a black for a 1/1. You can pay 1 and a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And there's Gutter Bones, which is 99 cents, which is a single black for a 2/1 that can't block. We can pay 1 and a black to return him from the graveyard to our hand if an opponent lost life this turn. Again, these 3 cards are just additional budget options of creatures that are super resilient. They enter play without having casted. They enter play, and while we did cast mana to activate their ability, we did not cast mana to actually pay the mana cost, so they will trigger Satoru, which is awesome. So this is where it got interesting, because you're probably thinking, I know where we're going with this. We're going to run just some straight up sack outlets. We're going to run Viscera Seers. We're going to run stuff like that. I thought that was too straightforward. I wanted this deck to feel a little bit more unique, so we went with some stuff like this. Ruthless Winnower for 99 cents. It's 3 and a black for a 4/4. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-elf creature. These types of effects cause constant attrition on the board. Everyone is constantly going to be losing creatures, and we're going to be completely fine with that because our creatures have Persist, Undying, and something else we'll talk about here in a minute. Call to the Grave's another one for $1.49. It's 4 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-zombie creature. At the end of turn, if no creatures are in play, sacrifice Call to the Grave. Again, keeping the foot on their neck, outpacing them, Battle of Attrition. Anawan the Ruin Sage coming in at $1.79. 3 and 2 black for a 4/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player sacrifices a non-vampire creature. Smokestack, which somebody recommended on the stream. It's $3.49, so we had to make room for it in the budget because it's very good. 4 colorless mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a Soot counter on Smokestack. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a permanent for each Soot counter on Smokestack. Gross, I know I'm disgusting. Have fun with your budget deck. Butcher of Malakar is also a great one for 69 cents. 5 and 2 black for a 5/4. Whenever she or another creature we control dies, each opponent sacks a creature. Pair this with the aforementioned sack triggers that are going off. Attrition, attrition, attrition. Yeah. So while those engines are one way we can use our Undying and Persist creatures, they're also really good in combat. They just make it really hard to swing at us. We can swing at other people and just get more Satoru triggers and get counters on them. Being able to use those counters that we're inevitably going to get on our Persist and Undying creatures is going to be very good, not only to get value from counters, but to also remove them so it resets their Undying and their Persist. So stuff like Sage of Fables for 35 cents. 2 and a blue for a 2/2. Each other wizard you control enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. We can also pay 2 colorless and remove a 1/1 counter from a creature we control to draw a card. Now pair this with our Undying creatures. We're drawing even more cards than we already were off our commander. We're also resetting our Undying creatures so that they can, you know, be sacked and come back again. Really annoying. As is Aether Snap for 49 cents. 3 and 2 black for a sorcery, remove all counters from all permanents and exile all tokens. This thing just board wipes any annoying tokens that are in play, as well as resetting all of our Persist and Undying. Soul Diviner is great, 49 cents. It's blue and a black for a 2/3. You can tap to remove a counter from an artifact, creature, land, or planeswalker you control, and then draw a card. Card advantage for removing the counters. Gross. Clock Spinning is a really good one that got recommended on stream as well. For 59 cents, it's a single blue for an instant with buyback for 3 colorless. Choose a counter on target permanent or suspended card and remove that counter, or put another one on. For essentially 3 and a blue, every turn we get a guaranteed remove a counter, which is pretty good. And if you have multiple mana, you can do that multiple times. Fame the Broker, 59 cents. It's 2 and a black for a 3/3 with 4 activated abilities. Tap him, sack a creature to put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Tap him to remove a counter from a creature you control to create a treasure token. Tap him to sack an artifact to create a 2/1 Inkling with flying, or pay 3 and a black to untap Fame. Sacking creatures to buff other ones is def useful, but removing counters to make treasures, very good in this deck. As is Goldberry River Daughter, might be my favorite card in this list. 99 cents, it's 1 and a blue for a 1/3 that we can tap to move a counter of each kind not on Goldberry from another target permanent onto Goldberry. You can also pay a blue and tapper to remove a counter from her onto something and draw a card. I don't need to say much here. She is awesome in this deck. And keeping in mind that +1/+1 counters negate -1/-1 counters, and vice versa, Goldberry along with Persist and Undying creatures becomes like extra good. Just say Heart of the Oceans is really good for 229. It's 2 and 2 blue for a 4/4 flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice it unless you remove a counter from something. Big flying beater, removes counters. Yes. Maybe we're not doing a lot of attacking. Maybe they're not doing a lot of the swinging. Maybe they're killing all of our stuff that causes us to sack our creatures. What are we going to do with all these little Undying creatures? Maybe they did kill all your stuff and you have all these Undying creatures late game and you're like, I want to upgrade a little bit. This next section is where the deck gets really annoying and fun. Modify Memory is 35 cents. It's 4 and a blue for a sorcery. Exchange control of 2 target creatures controlled by 2 different players. If you controlled neither, draw 3 cards. Oh, I love it. I'm gonna give you my Putrid Goblin. And this is where it gets funny. No matter what stage of life your Undying or Persist creature is in, it's gonna be terrible for your opponent. If they already have the 1/1 counter on them, it just goes away. Whatever, they don't get to get it back. But if you give them one that doesn't have a counter on it yet, or you remove one of your counters with one of our previously mentioned cards and then give it to someone, if that creature dies, it re-enters on your side because of Persist and Undying. Shifting Grifts is awesome for 35 cents, as well as being incredibly fun to say. Shifting Grift is 35 cents. It's 2 blue for a sorcery with Spree. You can pay an additional 2 to exchange control of 2 creatures, an additional 1 to exchange control of artifacts, or you can pay 1 additional to swap enchantments. This thing is honestly pretty good in general, especially in here though. Switcheroo is 35 cents. For 4 and a blue for a sorcery, swap 2 creatures. The Trickster God's Heist is 35 cents. It's 2 a blue and a black for a saga. Chapter 1 exchanges control of 2 creatures. Chapter 2 exchanges control of 2 non-creature, non-basic permanents. And Chapter 3 makes target player lose 3 and us gain 3. Ledgermane is 49 cents. For 2 and 2 blue at sorcery speed. Exchange control of 2 permanents that share a type. Exchange of Words is 79 cents for 1 and 2 blue. As an enchantment, when it enters, exchange the text on 2 target creatures until it leaves. This is great as we could just buff up one of our small creatures to scale. Sudden Substitution is $1.99 and it's 2 and 2 blue for a split-second instant. Exchange control of target non-creature spell and target creature. The spell's controller may choose new targets for it. Yeah, we could swap our little Undying stuff for any non-creature spell someone's casting, which could be just really gross. We also run a small 6-card package of cards that can cause creatures to enter for free on our side. We've got Thibblethip Lost at the Ranch for 59 cents, 1 and 2 blue for a 1/1 with Ward 2 that allows us to look at and plot the top card of our library for its mana cost, meaning that we can cast it for free in a future turn. Sloppity Bilepiper, while being a hilarious name that should have been on my nicknames for my girlfriend list, is really good. It's 49 cents, and for 3 and a black, we get a 3/3 that we can pay 2 colorless and tap to sack a creature, and give the next creature spell we cast this turn Cascade. Sacks our Undying and Persist stuff, and hits more stuff to cast for free. This is disgusting. Victimize is 59 cents. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery that sacks a creature to return 2 more from the grave into play tapped. It's fun, it's good at reintroducing some Persist and Undying, and it's a great way to stay in check. Unearth is 59 cents and is a single black for a sorcery that returns a creature that costs 3 or less from grave into play. It also adds cycling for 2, which is awesome, because we can either get back one of our small Undying or Persist things, or just get rid of it and draw a card. We've also got 2 Manifest engines in here, because manifesting also counts as a creature that's not a token entering the battlefield for free, so that's always good. Thieving Amalgam is 49 cents. It's 5 and 2 black for a 6/7 that manifests the top card of opponent's decks under our control on the upkeep, and drains opponents when stuff they own but we control dies, which interacts great with the Switcheroo package we've got in the deck. Primordial Mist comes in at $2.29 and is 4 and a blue for an enchantment that manifests the top card of our library on our end step, as well as allowing us to cast permanent cards we have hit, which is a little extra value. 2/2 body, potential to flip a permanent, card draw off our commander. This thing's great. We also run 6 Death Defy cards, the instants that kind of prevent the next time something dies, it just brings it back. They all come in at 35 cents. We've got Abnormal Endurance, Demonic Gift, Fake Your Own Death, Return to Action, Supernatural Stamina, and Undying Malice. Getting to the basics of the deck in terms of ramp, we actually only run 2 pieces of it, because a lot of the stuff in this deck is incredibly low costed. Feel like we can get away with it from the playtesting I've done. It seems we can get away with it. The 2 pieces we run are Defiler of Dreams and Defiler of Flesh. Both reduce the blue and black pip cost of permanents we cast, respectively, and both offer bonuses for casting said permanents. Defiler of Dreams draws us a card, while Defiler of Flesh gives us a +1/+1 counter and menace on a creature we control, which could be a good way to make a threat. It's also a really good way to reset persist creatures that already have a counter on them, so awesome. As far as removal is concerned, we only run 10 pieces, and keep in mind, anything that I don't bring up is something we've already talked about. Prices are on screen. We've got Heartless Act, Smallpox, Feed the Swarm, Ravenous Chupacabra, Suspend, Tragic Slip, Invoke Despair, Rankle's Prank, and Black Sun's Twilight. As far as card draw is concerned, we run 7 pieces because our commander is going to be so good at it, and we've also already gone over all 7 of those pieces, so there we go. For board wipes, we've got Decree of Pain, as it will draw us a ton of cards and reset the board, plus a bunch of our early game stuff being so resilient. Board wipes just feel good, especially when you board wipe into like a Fake Your Own Death on your commander. We also have Necromantic Selection, as it's a board wipe that reanimates a creature, and finally Massacre Worm, because gross. Lands are on screen. This deck comes in at $49.83. It holds its own. It's an extremely unique, fun strategy, and with that, let's jump over to Moxfield and draw a couple test hands. So we're going to refresh the page, so it'll deal a random hand, and we'll run through a couple hands and run through a playtest, or like a rough playtest of the deck. So dish us out a new hand at the bottom here. Let's see what we get. Okay. Swamp, Island, Exotic Orchard, Tenacious Dead, Call to the Grave, the Trickster God's Heist. I would definitely keep that one. We got a turn 1 play, which is perfect. We can keep getting it back. Turn 2 play with our commander. Turn 4 play with Trickster God. Our next 3 draws are River Kelpie, Undying Malice, Supernatural Stamina. I think that's pretty decent. If we can hit like a land in one of these next, yeah, that seems fine. Deal another one here. 2 swamps, an island, or 3 swamps, an island, Feed the Swarm, Shifting Grift, Soul Diviner. I would also keep that one. That seems fine. We'll deal 1 more keepable one and then play test it. 3 black, a Defiler, Nardle, Thibblethip Trickster. I'd mulligan that one. Into 2 swamps, an island, Tenacious Dead, Tragic Slip, Ledger Main, Aether Snap, which seems fine. We can run a play test on this one. Okay, so we draw for turn 1. We play Swamp, Tenacious Dead, pass. Next turn, return to action. That's actually pretty nice. Draw our land, pay 2 to drop our commander, hit somebody for 1, pass around. Oh, Sloppity Biopiper, that's really good. Yeah, we got a 2/3 menace. We're really not going to do anything this turn. We can just keep mana up for removal, act like we have a counter spell. Pass back around, comes to us. We're going to pay 4 for Sloppity Biopiper, swing again, comes back around. We're going to drop a Nardle, and then we're going to use Sloppity Biopiper to sack a creature. The next creature spell you cast this turn has Cascade. Actually, we're not going to do that yet. Hold on, we're going to put Nardle back real quick. There we go. Okay, so we're going to use Sloppity Biopiper to sack Tenacious Dead, which, you know, we can't use, but that's okay. Next creature we have has Cascade, so we're going to cast Nardle. And now we get to hit a, is it a permanent with Cascade? A non-land card that costs less, so something that costs 1 we get to put into play. Oh, and look at that, it's an Unearth. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less into play. Boop! Tenacious Dead comes back, and there we go. We go back to next turn, play an island. We can either drop our Stormbound Geist. If someone has something really good in play, we can use Ledger Main to swap control of one of our things with theirs. I'd probably go with this like very similar play to last turn where we pay 2. We use Sloppity to sacrifice Nardle, who will come back with a 1/1 counter because he has Undying. And then the next creature spell we cast this turn has Cascade. We'll pay 3 and play Stormbound Geist, which will Cascade for 2 or less. Ooh, unfortunate, Black Sun's Twilight. You can't hit them all, that's okay. But yeah, this is a pretty good run. We're drawing into, yeah, our Ruthless Winnower that we can start dropping to start cycling through these. We've got Aether Snap to reset our Undying creatures, which is very nice. Get rid of any tokens that are in play. We'll draw 1 more hand and kind of play test through it, just to get a rough idea here. So we'll restart. And our opener is a Putrid Goblin, Clock Spinning, Decree of Pain, and 4 lands. I'd probably keep this if I'm being honest. So we go to our first turn, play a Dark Water, pass. Next turn, go ahead and drop Putrid Goblin, pass. Next turn, we'll play a Temple. We'll scry one. Oh, Riverberry, or Goldberry, definitely keep her. We will drop Satoru, pass around. Comes back to us, we're gonna play Riverberry, which is fantastic. We're just swinging at this point. Swing, 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 comes back around. We're gonna drop our Winnower that causes everyone to sack a non-elf on their turn. Comes back around, we sack our Putrid Goblin. It comes back because of the Persist, draws us a card off of Satoru. We can switcheroo it if we want because we just got our use out of it. Switcheroo it, we can remove a counter from it if we want with Goldberry to get some value. And then just keep sacking it to the Ruthless Winnower to keep getting draws off Satoru. Defiler Flesh is sitting in hand, so that's another route. I like the deck a lot. I think there's a lot of different plays you can do with it, a lot of different stuff. And I hope you guys are for it and like it. If you guys like the deck, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, comment if you want to be put into the giveaway for the Planeswalker Party deck, which I have safely stored away. Link to this deck and the Planeswalker Party deck list down below. And if you want to suggest any cards, feel free. If you want to pick this deck up, the Moxfield link, like I said, is in the description below. You can actually order decks straight from there. I can actually show you how to do that really quick. If you do not have an LGS, that is, I always recommend going to your LGS. But if you don't, you can go to this Moxfield list. You can go to buy deck right here, and then pick whatever thing you want to order it off of. Like if you want to order it off Card Kingdom, $47.59, TCG Player, $23.61. I mean, sure, Star City Games, $38.59. Cool Stuff Inc., $45.73. So you can order your decks like that if you do not have an LGS. That's cool. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. I've got a lot more content coming out and ready to go. So awesome. I've got a bit of a busy next month or two. I'm trying to get my hands involved in some other stuff. So keep an eye out for that and play some Magic. And that's about it. I'll see you guys.